Hey there, we're here with Neil Delakia, Chief Product Officer for real estate giant Keller Williams. And like every other industry, real estate is finding new ways to leverage the data that powers their business. And at Keller Williams, Neil is helping to drive that strategy. So he's going to be telling us today about how Keller Williams is using AI. Thanks for joining me, Neil. How are you doing?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. You're welcome. So just to start off, I know that you came to Keller Williams a couple of years ago from the technology industry. And so I was hoping to hear from you a little bit about, whether you thought the company when you joined was ready to embrace AI and, just generally what you think it takes for a company from a traditional industry like real estate to jump into some cutting edge technologies.
Well, the reason I joined Keller Williams, my background has been enterprise software here in Austin, Texas, was because the opportunity that the founder, Gary Keller, presented to not just, not to me during our talks before I joined the company, but what he'd been expressing in market, that he wanted to transform his company from being the largest real estate franchise company in the world to a real estate technology company. And in talking to Josh Team, our president at the time, what the key thing that came across was they needed to make this change so that they wouldn't be the blockbuster to somebody else's Netflix story. So we didn't want to be the blockbuster to Zillow's Netflix or the blockbuster to Redfin's Netflix. You name the company that started up in the last 5 years or 10 years for that matter. They all look at us as an old guard company, and we're the blockbuster that they're going to Netflix. And so we don't want them telling those stories, so we're going to Netflix ourselves, and that's the real challenge. And we feel that because of our scale that's already been achieved in the company, it's already been achieved by Gary and the previous teams here, that we can leverage AI and the scale that we have to make sure that no one Netflixes us. And in terms of, we've got 35 years of historical data that we can leverage. We have 180,000 agents around the world, 160,000 in North America alone, that are generating more and more data in their daily interactions with their consumers, their clients. And as we collect all that information by incorporating everybody onto a singular platform, and that's part of what we're doing, is we're building from the ground up a singular agent operating system and a consumer experience capability that are linked together to collect this data. And we use the historical data, the new data that we're collecting, analyze that, and we've created a system whereby we've identified multiple AI outcomes that leverage some off-the-shelf technologies like Google's AutoML, Dialogflow, and things like that. And we've built up our own data science force here to be able to come up with what machine learning model building blocks do we need that we want to stack together to help us achieve these outcomes, and how do we want to express these outcomes so that it helps an agent be a better fiduciary to their clients. It creates a surprise and delight experience for those clients when they're touching us via one of our consumer touch points. And so that's our strategy from a technology perspective. Get everybody onto one platform and use AI and the data advantage we have to create differentiation on that platform.
Awesome. So you mentioned leveraging some off-the-shelf tools like Google's AutoML, which helps the process of building custom machine learning models. Can you tell us a little bit about the app that you built? It sounds like you have been using that tool to help realtors post listings quickly. Is that what it does?
Well, that's one aspect of it. What we did was we created a map of the multiple building blocks needed to create those outcomes I mentioned, and we cascade use cases together. So now, let me elaborate on that and tell a story, and then that'll answer your question. So we knew that we needed to be able to train a system to identify pictures of houses. What type of house is it? What type of facade does it have? When I'm walking through a house or I'm looking at pictures of the interior of a house, what's an entryway? What's a kitchen? what type of appliances are in a kitchen, what type of countertop is in a kitchen, just inventorying a house from pictures. And we wanted to create that type of intelligence. And so what we did first was we created an app for our agents to be able to take a video of a listing that they take. So they can walk up to a listing, a house, and start recording. And real time, as they're recording, we're identifying, and tagging the video live to say, hey, this is a French country home. It has a stone facade. They walk in, oh, we're in the entryway now, and it has tile floors. They walk into the dining room. We're in the dining room, and it has these attributes. We're in the kitchen. We have these attributes. So repeat throughout the entire house. At the end of 15 minutes of a walkthrough, and at the same time, the agent can annotate what they're seeing in each room, and we'll transcribe that as well. So at the end of that walkthrough, the annotation of the video, we'll take all of that. We'll use artificial intelligence to figure out through that video what are the best pictures of each room, what's in each of those rooms, transcribe the notes, and present that back to an agent. The agent will then correct the tagging that we did, and thereby making us more intelligent as we tag. They'll correct any notes that they've taken about a house. And the reason they do this is then at the end of that exercise, they push a button and will auto-generate a landing page for that listing, or a mini website for that listing that has all the pictures, snippets of video that we've automatically cut up, as well as tagging and annotations of the agent for every room they're in. And we just generate that. So that's instant value for an agent that they get just by using the system. They train our AI underneath. And because, again, we have scale of agents, we're getting more training data because of that. And so that gets, one use case, one outcome. But now we cascade that with, now that we have a system that is trained on identifying what's in a home, what are the attributes of the home, auto tagging it. When we show that system pictures from MLS, we also know what's in the pictures, even if if it's somebody else's listing and none of our agents ever walk through it. So now we add that to our consumer experience. So now when a consumer is looking at pictures of a home, we know what they're looking at, and because they're able to tag what they like at a detail level. I like white countertops. I like hardwood floors that are of this shade of color. As they like those things, we're able to create a profile of what their preferences are. That home search client plus maybe their co-buyer or partner in crime in terms of looking at homes, we can create a combined profile and then use that to better represent search results. So rather than doing a filter-based search, we will do a search based upon preferences that a buying pair or a buying set of folks may or may not even know that they have. And so we take our ability to differentiate using AI to create a new experience that is the Netflix experience of search, because now we're concierging. That's, I'm not sure I'm saying that right, but we're facilitating a better search experience than you can get anywhere else because we've leveraged our agent base in just one use case of training our system to identify what's inside of homes. We use that to present, hey, what tags a consumer might like. They tag, and then we use another AI system to figure out how do I find the best match of home to the preferences of a individual buyer or buying group of people. And at the same time, we do the same thing at the neighborhood level. So we can even tell you, hey, we know you're looking for a neighborhood of this type of profile and this type of home inside of that profile. And so another AI system that we have is identifying which neighborhoods have the same personality as another neighborhood, which neighborhoods are dog friendly. And so I could do a search on, I want to be 20 minutes away from my office and I need an outdoorsy neighborhood that's dog friendly, that has a lot of coffee shops around it, and I need a 4-bedroom, 3-bath, 3-car garage home. Find me that. And so that is a type of search that is difficult for our contemporaries to facilitate. and it becomes a first order problem for us in terms of what we solve for in our consumer experience.
Awesome. The cascading effect makes a lot of sense, and it's pretty neat the way you can, drive change at every level, starting with that initial use case. Are these in production already?
Well, many of these things, we go into production in stages. We call them labs. And so we have our labs process. And what we do is we will take an individual use case and start with, call it 10, 15 target users and get their feedback on that use case first. And as they say, hey, this is great, it's working correctly, then we matriculate to another lab that has, add a zero to the number of people. So it goes from 15 people to 150 people, then to 1,500 people, 15,000 people. And we have roughly about 30 to 40 lab streams going at any given time. As they progress through our system, we'll combine the streams together to create bigger and bigger pieces of functionality. So we don't like to say we've ever put anything into production and it's GA. It's always in a lab, and we talk about lab audiences. And so some of the stuff I'm talking about right now, the lab audience for the agent technologies and the AI stuff we're doing, our biggest lab is 60,000 agents right now out of our 160,000. And some of these labs are open, and agents can just come in, give us their feedback and leave again, or they can stay and leverage the software. Now, we haven't rolled out our consumer experiences yet. That is something that we want to make sure that we get right. So we're not going to lab with, out in the wild with consumers. So we're labbing with friendlies right now. We're using, in fact, with Google, they've made available their UX and AI practice to give us feedback on the experiences we've designed, and give us feedback on the usability, the UX portion of it, and everything. So we're leveraging that facility to do another iteration on our consumer experiences, both web and mobile app. And then we'll move to more friendlies in terms of rolling out the next lab for consumer experience, and then eventually it'll go to the wild, so to speak, so that any consumer can download it and leverage it. Cool. And that timeline is through the rest of this year and into next year.
Awesome. So how do you decide when to use an off-the-shelf tool like AutoML versus building a custom model from the ground up?
Well, that's a great question. The way I look at it, and I take a different look from, if you ask a data scientist that question, I'm sure they'd have a great answer based upon scientific principles and those types of mechanics. I look at it in terms of how do I operationalize AI, and so what are the components that go into that process. I focus on, what data do we need to get ready in order to power our AI models? What models do we need in terms of building blocks for cascading use cases? And then what are the outcomes that we care about? We prioritize the outcomes from greatest impact to our business. And then that cascades back to what building blocks do we need from ML perspective, ML building blocks, which then cascades back to what data we need to get ready. And so I think about it as a dependency chart. If we want this outcome because it moves the needle for us, then let's focus on these ML building blocks, which then require us to get this data ready. And then we assign various teams to each one of those segments. Go ahead and build this application experience, application engineers, data scientists, go get these ML models ready, and data engineers go get this data ready. Now, within those compartments, the decision-making on how to create, whether from scratch, the build by partner analysis happens independently. So some data scientists may come back and say, you know what, I need to build this from the ground up because I don't want to use some of these off-the-shelf pieces. Or they may come in and say, let's use the off-the-shelf piece right now, and we'll come back in after we learn a little bit and then figure out if we want to build from scratch. And ultimately for us, I would rather have an 80% solution tomorrow than a 95% accurate solution in 6 months. And so that's my trade-off, and that's how I think about it in terms of whether we build, buy, or partner to get a technology.
That makes sense. And so I know a big part of this process is having a the right team, and that recruiting data scientists and machine learning experts and engineers is a hot topic right now. I'm
Right.
curious what that experience has been like for you, and especially in an industry like real estate, do you think that that engineers have the right perspective of your business when they come in?
That's a great. Just actually, let me tease apart those questions. The first one around recruiting. So that's been interesting for us here in Austin. We've got literally, you can see Google from outside of our window. You can see Facebook. We've got a big Oracle presence. There's a Microsoft presence here. Amazon's growing as well. So we got the big four companies out here. We've got a lot of startups and a lot of exciting places for people to go. So there's a lot of competition for talent in our town. So it has been a challenge to recruit. Even outside of AI and data scientists. And now you take kind of those rare birds and try to recruit them against everyone else. It's been difficult. However, we do have an advantage that we do talk about in that we're working with AI with the latest technologies because quite frankly, coming from a real estate franchise company and pivoting to becoming a real estate tech company, we've gotten a legacy. We are building from the ground up inside of Google Cloud. And so you come work for us, you get experience with GCP. We're doing microservices, we're doing big data, we're doing AI on top of that big data, we're doing single page web apps, we're doing mobile apps, we're doing B2C software, B2B software, B2B2C software. So you can come to Keller Williams, spend a couple of years with us and get any kind of experience that you want to get, and then make yourself more valuable both to us and the industry in general. And so we've got a great value proposition where we're not so big that you get slotted into a single role and you spend 5 years in that role before you see the light of the next role. For us, new roles they appear daily for us, and for anyone that wants to jump on to more responsibility or take on a bigger set of responsibilities to get more experience, that's completely open and available to them. So that's our advantage, to any candidate that we're telling our story to. And so we've got a great recruiting force here that allows us to tell that story. So we hold our own when it comes to recruiting. And then the second question you had, now I went on a diatribe and I forgot what the second question was. What was the second question?
Let's see. I guess I was wondering whether engineers and your technology team has the right perspective.
Real estate. So they don't walk in here knowing how our business works and knowing real estate. I didn't either. I come from an enterprise software background, not a real estate background. But what they do get very quickly is that what's important to us is a consumer experience second to none. And so that attracts people to us that, hey, we're trying to create a consumer experience. And there are lots of companies that build different types of consumer experiences. We're just one of many, and you can come here and get an experience around, hey, here's the consumer journey that we've mapped out. Here's how we want to differentiate that journey. Now let's go build it. So they understand that. On the agent side, similarly, we've created agent personas that we want to interact with and build kind of the framework of the experiences we want. But then that labs process I mentioned really helps us as engineers understand the mindset of our users, because the first 15 participants in any lab of a feature that we're building for an agent, they are agents that are actually going to use the system. And before we even start writing code, before engineers touch a keyboard, we have paper in front of those agents, that first 15. We tell them, hey, how would you like this feature to work? What do you want to see on a screen? Draw it for us. And we go through a cycle where we have multiple groups of users draw what they think the feature should look like or how it should work. We take that to our design team. They create a mock-up of what we gleaned from that first session. We show it back to that same set of lab participants, and they tell us, hey, yeah, you mocked up exactly what we said, but guess what? We were wrong. Move this button over here, make this window bigger, and we go another cycle. And then once we get that, then we implement just that feature underneath that mock-up. And so through just that beginning phases, the ideation phases, what I just described, we've learned a lot. And that's how the engineers that may not have a real estate background are interacting. And it's not just engineers, it's product managers, it's designers. All those folks are interacting with the actual end user as part of labs, and they get indoctrinated, so to speak, on how agents want to use the software. And that's where they get the agent experience, the real estate experience in building out that functionality. And then once it's built, we get feedback from the ever bigger lab populations, and they're hearing all that feedback of, hey, this doesn't work for me now, or it doesn't work for my business because my business works this way. And so then we either have to go back to the drawing board or make an accommodation or add in a feature we hadn't thought about until we learn that from an agent team. An example is, we created as part of our contact management system, we used to have, based on what we learned initially in labs, leads were one database, contacts are another database. And that worked up until we got to a new population of teams inside of our lab using the system. And they said, no. Whether a contact is a lead or a straight contact is just an attribution or a decoration on a people record. Everything should be the same and you should be able to move things back and forth. And we said, oh, okay, well, we'll go do that. But we now did that in context of real estate, not because we had a product management hypothesis that said, let's try that and see if it sticks. Our labs process really allows us to move fast and get any new engineers, any new designers, any new product managers we hire up to speed quickly with the semantics of real estate and the nuances of this industry.
Awesome. So some of the new experiences you're building that we've heard about for real estate agents and customers seem to largely focus on kind of the visual aspects of the industry. And I can definitely see why that's a great place to start when leveraging AI. I was curious, where else though? What other kinds of data do you plan to leverage, and how else are you, exploiting AI?
Sure. So other areas that we leverage AI. So now one of the things that we're working on, and we're in the process of rolling out in labs in Texas and in one other area, is the ability for one of our systems to read contracts. So I get an offer on a house and it comes to me as a flat PDF in email. I'm an agent in this example. So in order for me to analyze that offer, I either have to read it and move the data off that contract into another system so I can summarize it and know what is inside that offer, or I have an assistant do it now. And that's typically the case. If I'm on a bigger team, there is an assistant that will take that contract and basically transcribe the particulars into another system that allows you to compare multiple offers. We have a system that will automatically read that for you. So you forward that flat PDF to, and our persona is called Kelly. So you forward it to Kelly at KW, and Kelly will read the contract, pull out all the particulars, and drop that into our offer management system. That's part of our opportunity management system in our sales pipeline of the CRM that we built for agents. And now it's sitting there, and we have not only the ability for the agent now to compare and contrast offers quickly, add notes, and then automatically generate a comparison sheet for their sellers, and just with a click of a button send that out, branded to them, all templatized and pretty printed. And that one use case, that flow through, saves a ton of money for our agents, because either they're having to hire an assistant to do it, or they're spending a lot of time just making things look nice in order to send to their seller. We turn that into a push button. And then at the same time, because we are analyzing the information in those contracts, both offers that have been accepted and not accepted, we are leveraging that data as another set of AI inputs to understand what's going on in a market, understand what's going on, with a particular set of criteria for both buyers and sellers. And so we then use that data to say, hey, say my partner is another agent and they're getting ready to write an offer, in the same market that we have data in, they'll know at the time they're writing that offer that, hey, the offer as written has 30% probability of being accepted. And if you change these criteria of that offer, you can move from 30% to 80%. And that becomes a conversation between that agent and their client, where now that agent is more informed and a better fiduciary and adding more value to that client relationship. And it's all because we've leveraged AI just to understand what's going on in the market right now. And again, I'll go back to, we're the largest. We see more of those offers than anybody else. And because of that, we have more data than anybody else. And then we can create better inferences and better advisement between Keller Williams agents and their clients.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like you're just getting started on this journey, and that there's a lot to look forward to in the coming year.
Yeah, we've been going about for 4 years now. First, just building up the platform, connecting all our data systems, creating the big data system, building the applications for the agents to use. And, as I mentioned, we got bigger and bigger labs. There's 60,000 folks in our main lab right now. And I wouldn't say we're just getting started, but we're hitting our stride now, yes.
Awesome. Well, thanks for telling us all about it, Neil. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for your time.
You too.